Welcome back everyone. Today we are going to start chapter 9, reproduction in animals. Do you recall the process of digestion, circulation and respiration which you have studied in your previous classes? These processes are essential for the survival of every individual. So these processes are very important and it is very essential for the survival of everyone. You have also learnt about the process of reproduction in plants. Reproduction is essential for the continuation of a species. Imagine what would have happened if organisms had not reproduced. You will realize that reproduction is very important as it ensures the continuation of similar kinds of individuals generation after generation. You have already learnt in your previous class about reproduction in plant. In this chapter, we shall learn about reproduction takes place in animals. So, mode of reproduction. Have you seen the young ones of different animals? Try to name some of the young ones by completing table 9.1. So, you can complete the table 9.1 and write the offspring of the animals. You can see here. You can write like a human has baby. So, cow has a calf and hen has chick. So, you can complete the table. So, you can see here, you must have seen the young one of various animals being born. Can you tell how chicks and caterpillars are born? How are kittens and puppies born? Do you think that these young ones looked the same before they were born as they do now? Let us find out. So just as in plants, there are two modes by which animals reproduce. These are sexual reproduction and asexual reproduction. So 9.2 sexual reproduction. Try to recall reproduction in plants which you studied in class 7. You will remember that plants that reproduce sexually have male and female reproductive parts. Can you name these parts? In animals also, males and females have different reproductive parts or organs. Like plants, the reproductive part in animals also produce gametes that fuse to form a zygote. So we have learned in class 7 about this. It is the zygote which develops into a new individual. This type of reproduction beginning from the fusion of male and female gamete is called sexual reproduction. Let us find out the reproductive parts in humans and study the process of reproduction in them. So you can see here, male reproductive organ. The male reproductive organ includes a pair of testes, singular testes, two sperm ducts and a penis. So you can see in 9.1 figure, the testes produce the male gamete called sperms. Millions of sperms are produced by the testes. Look at the figure 9.2 which shows the picture of a sperm. So you can see the picture of sperm in 9.2 figure. Now those sperms are very small in size. Each has a head, a middle piece and a tail. So you can see this is the head, it is the middle piece and this is the tail. Does it appear to be a single cell? Indeed, each sperm is a single cell with all the usual cell components. So you can see here, this is the sperm duct, this is the penis and these are the testes. So what purpose does the tail in a sperm serve? So female reproductive organ. The female reproductive organ are a pair of ovaries, oviduct, fallopian tubes and the uterus. You can see in figure 9.3. These are the oviduct, these are the ovaries and these are uterus and these are the fallopian tubes. So this is a figure of female reproductive organ in humans. The ovary produces female gametes called ova, or that is eggs. As you can see in figure 9.4, these are the human ovum. So in human beings, a single matured egg is released into the oviduct by one of the ovaries every month. Uterus is the part where development of the baby takes place. Like sperm and egg is also a single cell. So sperm and ova is a single cell. So you can see the nucleus in it. So Bojo recalls that the size of eggs in animals varies. The eggs may be very small in hen, as in humans, much larger are in hen. Ostrich egg is the largest. So fertilization, the first step in the process of reproduction is the fusion of a sperm and an ovum. When sperm comes in contact with an egg, one of the sperm may fuse with the egg. Such fusion of the egg and the sperm is called the fertilization. So when the sperm is fused with the egg, it is called the fertilization. You can see in figure 9.5 It is given there. So during fertilization, the nuclei of the sperm and the egg fuse to form a single nucleus. So they fuse together. This results in the formation of a fertilized egg or a zygote, as in figure 9.6 you can see. So this is the figure of fertilization. Sperms and ovum fuse together. You know that the zygote is the beginning of a new individual. So you can see fusing of nuclei. This is zygote. So the process of fertilization is the meeting of an egg cell from the mother and a sperm cell from the father. So the new individual inherits some characteristics from the mother and some from the father. Look at your brother or sister. See if you can recognize some characters in them similar to those of your mother or your father. Fertilization, which takes place inside the female body, is called internal fertilization. Internal fertilization may occur in many animals including humans, cows, dogs and hens. So have you heard of the test tube babies? Bojo and Paheli's teacher once told them in a class that in some women's oviducts are blocked. These women are unable to bear the babies because sperm cannot reach the eggs for fertilization. In such case, doctor collect freshly released eggs and sperms and keep them together for a few hours for IVF or in vitro fertilization outside the body. So in case fertilization occurs, the zygote is allowed to develop for about a week and then it is placed in the mother's uterus. Complete development takes place in the uterus and the baby is born like any other baby. Babies born through this technique are called test tube babies. This term is actually misleading because baby cannot be grown in a test tube. So this term is very misleading. So we think that the babies are born in a test tube, but this is not the case. You will be surprised to know that in many animals, fertilization takes place outside the body of the female. In these animals, fertilization takes place in water. Let us find out how this happens. So activity 9.1, visit some pond or slow flowing stream during spring or rainy season. Look out for the cluster of frog eggs floating in water. Write down the color and size of the egg. During spring or rainy season, frogs and toads move to pond and slow flowing streams. When the male and female come together in water, the female lays hundreds of eggs. Unlike hen's egg, frog's egg is not covered by a shell and it is comparatively very delicate. So a layer of jelly holds the egg together and provides protection to the eggs. So you can see the eggs of frogs here in the figure 9.7. As the eggs are laid, the male deposits sperms over them. Each sperm swims randomly in water with the help of its long tail. The sperms come in contact with the eggs. This results in fertilization. This type of fertilization, in which the fusion of the male and female gamete takes place outside the body of the female, is called external fertilization. It is very common in aquatic animals such as fish, starfish, etc. So Bojo says, why do fish and frogs lay eggs in hundreds, whereas a hen lays only one egg at a time? So Paheli says, though these animals lay hundreds of eggs and release millions of sperms, all the eggs do not get fertilized and developed into new individuals. This is because the eggs and sperms get exposed to water movement, wind and rainfall. Also, there are other animals in the pond which may feed on eggs. Thus, production of large number of eggs and sperms is necessary to ensure fertilization of at least few of them. So, Bojo says, how could a single cell become such a big individual? So, development of embryo. Fertilization results in the formation of zygote, which begins to develop into embryo. So, you can see the picture of embryo in 9.8 A figure. The zygote divides repeatedly to give rise to a ball of cells, as in figure 9.8 B. The cell then begins to form groups that develop into different tissues and organs of the body. The developing structure is termed as an embryo. So the developing structure is called embryo. The embryo gets embedded in the wall of the uterus for further development, as in figure 9.8C you can see. The embryo continues to develop in the uterus. It gradually develops the body parts such as hands, legs, head, eye, ears, etc. So the stage of the embryo in which all the body parts can be identified, it's called a fetus. So it is given in the figure 9.9. So this is the fetus. So this is the uterus, and when the development of the fetus is complete, the mother gives birth to the baby. Internal fertilization takes place in hens also, but do hens give birth to babies like human beings and cows? You know that they do not. Then how are chicks born? Let us find out. Soon after fertilization, the zygote divides repeatedly and travels down the oviduct. As it travels down, many protective layers are formed around it. The hard shell that you see is in a hen's egg is one such protective layer. After the hard shell is formed around the developing embryo, the hen finally lays the egg. The embryo takes about 3 weeks to develop into a chick. You must have seen the hen sitting on the eggs to provide sufficient warmth. Do you know that the development of the chicks takes place inside the eggshell during this period? After the chick is completely developed, it bursts open the eggshell. In animals which undergo external fertilization, development of the embryo takes place outside the female body. The embryo continues to grow within the egg covering. After the embryo is developed, the egg hatch. You must have seen numerous tadpoles swimming in ponds and streams. So viviparous and oviparous animals. We have learned that some animals give birth to young ones while some animals lay eggs which later develop into young ones. The animals which give birth to young ones are called viviparous animals. The animals which lays egg is called oviparous animals. The following activity will help you to understand better and differentiate between viviparous and oviparous animals. Activity 9.2. Try to observe eggs of the following organisms: frog, lizard, butterfly or moth, hen and crow or any other birds. Were you able to observe eggs of all of them? Make drawing of the eggs that you have observed. The eggs of a few animals are easy to observe because their mother lay them outside the body. These are example of oviparous animals, but you would not be able to collect the egg of a dog, cow or cat. This is because they do not lay eggs. The mother gives birth to the young ones. These are examples of viviparous animals. Can you now give some more examples of viviparous and oviparous animals? So young one to adults, the new individual which are born or hatched from the egg continues to grow till they become adult. In some animals, the young ones may look very different from the adult. Recall the life cycle of the silkworm: egg, larva or caterpillar, pupa and adult. You studied it in class 7th. Frog is such another example. You can see in example 9.10. Observe the different stages of frog starting from the egg to the adult stage. We find that there are 3 distinct stages, that is egg, tadpole, larva and then to adult. Don't the tadpole look so different from the adult? So can you imagine that these tadpoles would someday become frogs? So you can see these are eggs, early tadpole, late tadpole and an adult frog. You can see the life cycle of the frog. So similarly, the caterpillar or the pupa of the silkworm looks very different from the adult moth. The features that are present in the adult are not found in these young ones. Then what happens to the tadpoles or caterpillars thereafter? You must have seen a very beautiful moth emerging out of the cocoon. In the case of tadpoles, they transform into adults capable of jumping and swimming. The transformation of the larva into an adult through drastic changes is called metamorphosis. What about the changes that we observe in our body as we grow? Do you think we also undergo metamorphosis? In human being, body parts similar to those present in the adult are present from the time of birth. So 9.3 Asexual reproduction. So far we have learnt about the reproduction in some familiar animals, but what about very small animals like hydra and microscopic organisms like amoeba? Do you know how they reproduce? Let us find out. So 9.3, get a permanent slide of hydra. Observe them using hand lens or a microscope. Look out for any bulges from the parent body. Count the number of bulges that you see in different slides. Also note the size of the bulges. Draw the diagram of hydra as you see it. Compare it with the figure in 9.11. So you can see budding of hydra in figure 9.11. In each hydra, there may be one or more bulges. The bulges are the developing new individuals and they are called buds. Recall the presence of buds in yeast. In Hydra 2, the new individual developed as outgrowths from a single parent. This type of reproduction, in which only a single parent is involved, is called a asexual reproduction. Since new individuals develop from the buds in Hydra, this type of asexual reproduction is called budding. Another method of asexual reproduction is observed in the microscopic organism amoeba. Let us see how this happens. So you can see in the figure 9.12 binary fission in amoeba. And so you have already learnt about the structure of amoeba. You will recall the amoeba in a single celled organism, as you can see in 9.12 11a. It begins the process of reproduction by division of its nuclei into two nuclei. You can see it in figure 9.12b. They are dividing the nuclei, and then this is followed by division of its body into two each parts receiving a nucleus. You can see in figure C. Finally, two amoebas are produced from one parent amoeba. So you can see in D. This type of asexual reproduction, in which an animal reproduces by dividing into two individuals, is called binary fission. Apart from budding and binary fission, there are other methods by which a single parent produces young ones. You will study about this in higher classes. So story of Dolly the clone. So cloning is the production of an exact copy of a cell, any other living part, or a complete organism. Cloning of an animal was successfully performed for the first time by Ian Wilmot and his colleagues at the Roslin Institute in Edinburgh, Scotland. They successfully cloned a sheep named Dolly. Figure 13.c. Say Dolly was born in 5 July 1996 and was the first mammal to be cloned. So you can see A, B and C. C is Dolly. During the process of cloning Dolly, a cell was collected from the mammary gland of a female fin dorsate sheep, as in figure A. Simultaneously, an egg was obtained from a Scottish blackface Eve, as you can see in B. The nucleus was removed from the egg. Then the nucleus of the mammary gland from the fin dorsate sheep was inserted into the egg of the Scottish blackface Eve, whose nucleus has been removed. The egg thus produced was implanted into the Scottish blackface Eve. Development of this egg followed normally, and finally Dolly was born. Though Dolly was given birth by the Scottish black Eve, it was found to be absolutely identical to fin dorsate sheep, from which the nucleus was taken. Since the nucleus from the egg of the Scottish blackface Eve was removed, Dolly did not show any characteristic of the Scottish blackface Eve. Dolly was a healthy clone of the fin dorsate sheep and produced several offspring of her own through normal sexual means. Unfortunately, Dolly died on 14 February 2003 due to a certain lung disease. Since Dolly, several attempts have been made to produce clone mammals. However, many die before birth or die soon after birth. The clone animals are many times found to be born with severe abnormalities. So here the chapter is finished, and we'll start the next chapter in the next class.